I am going to teach you how to build LOCKE. Runes, items, skill order, everything to give you an edge to squeeze the juice out of this new champion. If you guys are new, I'm gonna change your coach. We're gonna go brick by brick, build an item set, go over every choice. But first, we gotta start with the runes, and of course, as usual, all item sets you'll be able to download them on my Patreon, among other things. And it starts pretty simply. LOCKE is a champion that wants to bully in early game. We figured out he's an assassin, and he has a pretty strong laning phase. He wants to trade, he wants to be aggressive, he wants to snowball. Electrocute makes the most sense for his trade pattern, gives you the most damage and the highest chances of snowballing. Tube Shot seems fine, but Sudden Impact is just more consistent, especially because his Q cooldown is not that short in early game, and it's just going to give you more 100 to 0 potential throughout the game. Sudden Impact, more impact, Grizzly Mementos, Sixth Sense. I would say this is a bit better because you can get a lot of kills on LOCKE, at least in his current state, but he seems to be a bit overtuned, but it's just preference. Ultimate Hunter is popular, but I think it's quite bad. Because his ultimate cooldown is already quite low, and you have a way to refund some of the cooldown, and it doesn't rely on his ultimate for a lot of his early game interactions. So I would say never go Ultimate Hunter on this character. Relentless Hunter is okay, but I think Treasure Hunter is still the best, because it allows you to snowball harder in your own laning phase. If you get that first kill, the first stack, by killing the enemy mid laner, this is going to be a mid lane focused guide, but don't get discouraged. Pretty much most of it applies for jungle as well, if not 95% of it really. It's going to give you enough gold to, for example, buy an extra Rampton. So it just has better chances of snowballing your own laning phase to chain kill your opponent, which is something that LOCKE is definitely very capable of doing. For the secondary, I would go even further in the offense with Cut Down. Stays consistent throughout the game because it's percentage. Very strong at bullying the opponent, trying to bring them to low health, and you're going to be hitting them over 60% because they're going to pop potions and regenerate some health. So overall Cut Down is great, and then I combine it with Triumph. It's going to help in these close skirmishes that you're going to want to try to take. You can survive minion aggro, you can survive ignite, and just close fights in general can really help in team fights, smaller skirmishes. With his all-in playstyle getting resets, Triumph is a sort of reset, just combines really nicely. And the gold, similar to Treasure Hunter, more early game snowball, more chances to get an extra component in early game. It really adds up over larger sample sizes. Double Amptom with flat health. Always just want as much power in those early fights, early trades. You will maybe consider scaling health in some boring lanes. And very, very rarely, maybe Tenacity slow resist if they really have an insane unholy amount of CCs. But like 99% of the time I'll probably just go flat health. Another thing that people seem to like doing is bomb plating Revitalize. I can kind of see the merit, especially if you play matchups like, let's say, Renekton, Riven, some kind of melee, strong trade character. You can attempt to fight back a bit with bomb plating. I'm not an expert on LOCKE matchups right now, but definitely the Revitalize at low health, 15% on your W makes good sense. Besides Electrocute, I would also advise you to try First Strike in lanes where, again, boring lanes, maybe you think you cannot snowball very easily. LOCKE has an easy time proccing the First Strike, just getting the first hit on opponents because of his Q range. So you can use it to farm a bit of gold. It's going to have some use throughout the game. I'm gonna combine it with Cashback because I think early boots can have some merit. Both are fine. Triple Tonic, you don't really care about biscuits, especially if you go this type of page, so it would nullify the option automatically. All three options here are good. Even Approach Velocity can perhaps work. I would prefer Jack of all trades because it's pretty easy to go to 5. You're gonna get some more haste throughout the game, which does help because you'll see the build does not have much haste. a lot of the items have 0 haste that this character would like to buy, so that's pretty nice. Now, just combining with Triumph and Cut Down, Sudden Impact Treasure Hunter also fine, but you don't get the healing. Therefore, Cut Down also has a bit more synergy with First Strike plus throwing Qs and stuff like that. I think it's just better. Now let's go over the items. Doran's Ring, simple, always go Doran's Ring, no reason to go anything else. Double pot. Some Dark Seal in the early game, not at level 1 when you start, but always go Dark Seal, look to buy a Magi. It's gonna be important on a character like Locke. At least get the Dark Seal after your first legendary if you must delay it because of certain more valuable things you have to buy, like maybe you want to get a Blasting One or equal, and so on. Now, where it gets more interesting, I would say, is on the first legendary item, which we call the root here, which basically means just the first legendary item. I can explain to you guys a bit better. A lot of people do Leech Bane, which is going to be strong, but I'm also going to talk a bit about when Storm Surge is also going to be strong. So Storm Surge gives you the highest damage possible on one item, but also throughout the game, when it comes to going 100 to 0 on someone. If you want pure burst, pure damage, killing the first target, solo killing your lane opponent easier, Storm Surge is the best, and the other strength it has, besides being cheaper and having more kill threat, is that you get Alternator, which is an amazing component for Locke. While on the Leech Bane side you have Blasting Wand, which can be more annoying to build. This is double Amptom, so the build path is better. The kill potential is going to be better in certain matchups. Whereas Leech Bane going to be a stronger item, potentially. If you have to take multiple trades, maybe the opponent is a bit tankier, even a straight up tank, Leech Bane is going to be the best. It's going to be nice if you care more about split pushing with your build, hitting turrets. And it will also have the most potential when you get resets, when you have setup on your team. So Storm Surge allows you to be more self-sufficient, also a bit more useful from behind. Especially if you combine it with Shadow Flame or other pure spell pen items, to have like more AoE damage. And, you know, overall control with your R. While Leech Bane is going to be a bit more powerful for resets when you have setup, when you wanna deal a bit more sustained damage. Both are good, and they can also be built on the second item. I'm gonna explain that in a second, but now we're gonna go over Rocket Belt. So when would I build Rocket Belt as my first item? It's very cheap, very easy build path, solid, and it has HP and haste, not as much burst damage, but still solid burst damage. I think it would make the most sense if you want to be a bit more defensive, if you play against champions that really rely on skill shots to do their thing. You can dodge Yone R, even Kiana R. So if you think you can outplay certain abilities like that, it will just be very annoying trying to buy time with your Rocket Belt plus W. Maybe your comp is a bit bad, way too damage oriented, and you have to play a bit more upfront yourself. You have to be a little bit more of a distraction for the enemy team. Then Rocket Belt makes more sense. And also, if you have certain champions like Nautilus that can allow you to hit 3 Qs consistently, then you will not care as much about dealing the highest damage possible, because with Leech Bane or Storm Surge, you have to understand, even if you miss some Qs, it's going to be fine. And should you go even further, Riftmaker, Dusk and Dawn, Bruiser, Locke, stuff like that, Conqueror, no, I think that's terrible because the character is too gated by cooldowns, and his passive plus W DPS is just there as a flavor thing to split his power budget a bit. It's not real DPS. You're still going to deal less damage than like a Talon with auto attacks, which doesn't even have steroids, any AD assassin. The part of the kit is there just so you care about auto attacking a bit when your abilities are on cooldown. You're not just gonna sit in a corner and do nothing for 5 to 10 seconds. But it's mostly gated by his W cooldown because he just doesn't have the stats to hit there and chase somebody down with auto attacks in teamfights and so on. Rocket Belt is really like the maximum amount of more bruiserish item you can afford to get, I would say. But after that you still have to purchase mostly glass cannon. Okay. Let's go over boots. So it's gonna be mid lane. This is going to be over 90% of the time simply the best. Even if you bite every single game, you cannot go wrong with it. It's going to be about 10, 11, maybe best case scenario 12% damage increase. On average, depends on other items and MR values on the enemy team, but you should expect at least like 10% damage from Spellslinger shoes, which is amazing for your burst damage. And if you really want to think more about your items, you can take Immortal Parrot. So as I said, if this is 10% damage, this is 5% damage, so you're getting like half of the damage from that. And it's also cheaper, so you might have enough money for like a large rod or an Amptom, which can close the gap even further on a game-to-game basis. But you also unlock this new potential with the sustain and the 15% increase healing on your W. So yes, this is 5% damage if you're above 50% health, but if you drop to below 50% and then heal a lot with your W, you can go above 50% again, if that makes sense. So I would look to buy this in niche cases where I don't care about dealing the most amount of damage possible. And I also know, or I'm already pretty snowballed, I'm gonna be able to get a lot of stacks to have this unlocked sustain potential in teamfights, where not only I can get resets, but I can also heal a bit, kind of like a Conqueror effect, where I can go even crazier, right? But then again, pretty niche, you have to think a bit more when you buy this item. This has to be bought in some cases, even though you sacrifice damage, which is not nice for Locke, against characters that have a lot of magic damage and crowd control. Obviously, it can really counter some mages because of the powerful shield in laning, so it's just worth putting on the list. In very rare situations, I would maybe consider this if they really have crazy slows, like Eshan, Evian, Nasus, Udyr type stuff. In that case, you can become extremely slippery because 65 MS is pretty crazy. And if you combine it with Leech Bane, Storm Surge, W, you can still get a lot of AP. It's not gonna be the same damage as Pen, but you can get closer to it, which means that the sacrifice you're making to get the mobility is not going to be as bad. 40% slow resistance is crazy to have on one item, so you have to keep an eye out on it. And I guess I would probably never do it, but if you're against full AD auto attackers, you can go Armored Advance. Now let's jump into the offensive items, which would still be Storm Surge and Leech Bane. You can buy this second. I'm gonna explain it more. And Shadow Flame. Okay, these are gonna be the main items that you're looking to get for first and second slot. Storm Surge with Shadow Flame is going to be the highest damage ceiling possible. If you go Storm Surge Shadow Flame, you are going to guarantee kill your own target, blow them up. It's crazy amounts of damage. Leech Bane Storm Surge is going to be more balanced. I would say that in general you want to buy Storm Surge over Shadow Flame second, because Storm Surge is just generally a better item. I want to explain to you a concept with Shadow Flame. Assume our target is 1000 life and you hit them when they are 500 current. With a 300 hit, they will drop from that instance of damage to 200 life, which means that even if the next instance does the perfect lethal, it's only going to amplify for 20% of their life, not 40%, right? Which means that you only got about 4% damage in that 100 to 0 scenario, which is going to happen more often than you think. You're not gonna hit them exactly at 40% life to get the maximum amount of damage. When Shadow Flame is going to excel, you are going to fight tankier targets, so you're hitting them for a larger life pool, when they're at 40%. And generally when you are cleaning up and getting resets, stuff like that. So Leech Bane plus Shadow Flame is going to be the best build when you have setup and doing a lot of cleanup. While if you want to be super reliable or start fights yourself, Storm Surge plus Shadow Flame or Storm Surge plus Leech Bane would make more sense. We cannot sleep on Storm Surge being a lot cheaper and having a lot more movement speed. Having 12% MS on 2 items is crazy. It's just a lot cheaper. Shadow Flame, not an amazing item, it's very expensive, so you really have to think when you choose to buy these items. Don't just click Shadow Flame every game, which I see a lot of people doing. You know, Storm Surge can deal pretty much the same damage when you're killing your target, but it's way cheaper, your death cap is gonna come sooner, or Zonia, whatever, and 6% movement speed. You guys say all the time, hey man, MS is the most overpowered stat, so why not have 2 items with movement speed if they also give you the most amount of damage in a lot of scenarios. Okay, of course we can start considering Void Sap at some point if they buy MR. Even second item, in some cases it can be optimal, but mostly third or fourth, fifth. For sure you want to have percentage pen in a full build on this character. Otherwise, when people get MR per level at 18, you are not going to have optimal damage. Maybe there are going to be rare cases where you can skip it if you really see 0 MR, mostly ranged champions that don't get that much MR per level. If you guys don't know, ranged champions have lower MR per level than melee champions for the most part. There are some special cases. Another thing I would consider when enemies don't buy that much MR, and I want to bring some extra utility, some haste, still gives you a lot of burst damage, especially if you already bought some of these other items and you want to itemize more damage. Maybe you already have Death Cap completed. Crypt Bloom is gonna be really good because this 10% pen, hey, if they have like 50 MR or 80 MR, you get 5, 8, 10, you'd rather have 20 haste and a powerful AoE heal, a little redemption for your team. Don't sleep on Crit Bloom. Now we're gonna get into some really niche stuff with Gunblade. You might be wondering, well, what the fuck is Gunblade, man? It should be doesn't have any ratios, aren't you crazy? And the way I see it is, okay, Gunblade, a strong silencing item. If I'm behind, terrible. If I'm with ahead, I wanna focus on silencing, speed pushing. It can allow me to sustain on waves, it can allow me to farm jungle camps, and chaining my Qs. It's very easy to set up your Q to get all 3 nails with this slow, or even hitting your ultimate. So it makes it really brain dead to fight some squishy targets in side lane and play off that if you think it's a better win condition than teamfighting. But obviously the other items are going to be better overall teamfighting, although 10% Omnivamp, when you're playing a glass cannon champion, it can be useful to turn around fights. So you're sacrificing a bit of damage to get some extra utility, and the AD can still be useful to deal a little bit extra damage if you get an auto attack here and there, or just to hit towers. It's not a completely wasted stat, but just keep in mind that the active from Gunblade has a big AP ratio, big base damage, so you deal a lot of burst with Gunblade. Overall, it's a burst AP item for AP assassins. So, even though it's a bit experimental, I would recommend you guys to give it a try in the situations in which you would reason it makes sense. But I believe it has some potential that you could tap into. And something that I would always avoid to buy, but if there's no choice, if they're Aatrox with Soraka and Swain, and your team doesn't want to buy heal reduction, you can upgrade your Oblivion Orb in late game as your last slot to Morello Namika. Again, if there's no choice. So this would be offense. And if you don't care as much about dealing damage, if you just want to survive, which would be defense, we have Zonia and Banshee. Again, no Riftmaker, no Dusk and Dawn. I don't think he can play for those things. Can you buy those items in combination with some of the other ones? Like, will you actually be useless if you get a Dusk and Dawn with penetration items? No, but it's just going to be worse than other options, I would say. And I would still look to avoid Banshee and thus and Zonia on this character because his W already has a lot of anti-burst. But, you know, even though Rengar has a similar mechanic, you still go Edge of Night on him, it's pretty strong. But that item is more generalistic. When you go Banshee or Zonia, you have to opt into a specific res, which is not as efficient as buying Edge of Night. So, the way I view it is, if you really think it's huge Banshee or Zonia value, then you can for sure go for it. This is fine, but I'll be careful to not lose too much damage, especially if I end up skipping a dead cap, or avoid stuff or a Crypt Bloom to go any of these items and I end up stunting my build, and maybe the enemies get some MR and I don't have enough time to complete another item after I reacted to their purchase. It can get ugly, so I would stick mostly to these items and playing into his main fantasy. When it comes to capstone items, you guys know, if you are watching this channel, most champions have multiple, but I'm trying to make these guides for any type of player to learn, so I want to structure them properly. I don't care if you're a master, or emerald, or silver, or you're Jinxie and just started playing the game. I want you to come out of these videos with a knowledge that is easy to digest and sticks to your head. So when it comes to dead cap, you want to have this in pretty much every single build. Every single full item build on LOCKE. Dead cap, his ratios are really crazy. You can buy it as a third item. As a second item is pretty bad because these items are pretty cheap and they fulfill the same job better. But it also grants you effective health. So dead cap can also be a defensive item because of the ratio on W, which is something you have to factor in. Hey, Zonia or Banshee sounds good here, but with dead cap I get a lot more healing. So maybe I want to buy dead cap because it, you know, is a better all-rounder while also giving me a lot of damage, obviously. 4th, 5th, it's already a crime if you don't buy it. It's a pretty good dead cap user. As I said, not only damage but also effective health. Now, where we can get even crazier with this guide, in my opinion, is... You guys know I like this type of concept with the snowball items. My snowball item idea for LOCKE would be redemption, which is if you are very fed and the game is going pretty well, like your team is not completely feeding, you are 7 kills early, 10 kills early, something like that, just blowing the game open. Besides buying Magi and such, you can invest into a more utility item like redemption. What this does is that you leverage your lead when you are already easily one-shotting everyone on the enemy team, potentially, into something that has more power for your team and more impact on the map. So in this case, redemption, it has solid stats. You can use all of these stats pretty alright. You can get more rotations, you can be tankier and more obnoxious, so it's harder to kill. If you have a shutdown and you don't want to die, for example, this can help you cover a bit, similar to, you know, buying a Zonia. But it allows you to cover the map. It's a global ability. If you are mid lane and fighting, or just clearing the wave, you can also redemption in the side lane and have some impact there. Overall, AoE impact in team fights to make your team stronger. So that's one way to invest your gold. And some extra synergy with the LOCKE champion himself. 99% slow on the R, combo it with redemption, easy to land. If you end up landing the damage part, the damage is not even going to be that much lower compared to buying a pure AP damage item. So that will be my explanation for redemption. Hey, is it crazy? Yeah. But if you are a smart player, you might be able to make use of it. Now for the skill order, I think people really prefer W right now. The E only has like 20 damage per rank. You usually don't hit both parts when you dash into people. W has movement speed, the cooldown goes down and you get more effective health. So also for like the stat efficiency, W has more value. But similarly to Evelynn, where you max your E to get the most damage possible. There might be merit, maybe 5-10% of the time, if you really want to deal maximum damage for whatever reason. Again, it might be troll, I'm just speculating here. There could be some merit to maxing E. You can stick to maxing W every single game, that's what good players are doing right now as well. Seems totally reasonable to me. No problem. Other than that, you guys should look forward to more of these guides. I'm down to just make them in one cut like this. Schizo-ranting a bit about my concepts. Hopefully you got a pretty good idea. If I were to watch my own video, I think I would understand pretty well when to go Storm Surge first, when to go Shadow Flame, when to go Leech Bane. And that's my guide. So drop a like, drop a sub. Follow my stream. I'm a jungler, I mean Udyr. Volibear updated guide for season 16 is gonna come next probably. Unless I get some other crazy idea. And another thing that I wanted to mention with you guys is League Classic. When League Classic comes out, I'm probably gonna play it more than normal League. I'm gonna try it a lot. And probably, you know, if it's good, if people get hooked on it, they get addicted, I'm down to make some guides for League Classic. I think that could be fun. I don't know if I'm gonna make a separate channel for League Classic. That will also be kind of crazy idea. But I will for sure look to make something like 10 reasons why you should try League Classic. If you are not very excited about it, maybe I can convince you. You know, until next time guys, thank you for watching. G motherfucking G. I love making these guides. Cheers.